My wife sent me a text message that would end our marriage, destroy 2 careers, and unearth a family secret I never knew existed. It said her boss had paid for their hotel suite for the weekend, and that she felt like she owed him a fun night. I read the words once, then twice. The world seemed to slow down, the air in the room turning thick and heavy. A younger version of me would have exploded, would have called her screaming, would have smashed something. But I'm not that man anymore. I took a slow, deep breath, let it out, and typed back 2 simple words. Room number. She must have seen it as weakness, as acceptance. She had no idea that I wasn't surrendering. I was gathering my forces. She had just handed me the final piece of a puzzle I had been meticulously assembling for 6 agonizing months. My name is Randall Pfizer. For the better part of my life, I've run a small but successful consulting firm specializing in automotive supply chains. It's a world of logistics, spreadsheets, and quiet, honest work. It's not glamorous, but it's mine, and it has provided a comfortable life. My wife, Courtney, existed in a different universe. When we met 7 years ago, I was 41, recently divorced, and a little lost. She was 34, a rising star in corporate partnerships at a major automotive giant, Davidson Automotive. She was beautiful, sharp, and had an ambition that burned like a furnace. I was flattered that a woman like her, with her polished suits and razor-sharp intellect, would even notice me. We fell hard and married fast. In retrospect, maybe too fast. For the first few years, it was good. I admired her drive, and she seemed to appreciate my steady, grounding presence. But as her career ascended, a subtle shift began. Her victories at work became the only victories that mattered. Our conversations started to feel more like corporate briefings, and the warmth that once defined us was slowly being replaced by a cool professional distance. The signs started small. She became intensely private with her phone, angling it away from me whenever a message came in. Her business trips grew more frequent, the details more vague. There were expensive dinners on the corporate card she'd mention offhandedly, gifts from her boss, Mitchell Garrison, that she'd dismiss as standard practice for executives. Mitchell was the regional VP, a man I'd met a handful of times at company events. He had that predatory charisma some powerful men possess, an unnerving way of looking at you not as a person but as an obstacle or a tool. He looked at me like I was furniture. I started to get a knot in my stomach that wouldn't go away. It was a late-night receipt I found in her coat pocket for 2 very expensive glasses of whiskey at a hotel bar on a night she was supposed to be working late at the office. That made me open the first folder. I labeled it simply documentation. From that day on, every inconsistency, every suspicious expense report I could access on our shared accounts, every lie that didn't quite line up went into that folder. It felt shameful, like a betrayal in itself, but some deep-seated instinct told me I was not being paranoid. I was being prudent. The fun night text was the culmination of all of it. It came on a Thursday evening. She had breezed into the kitchen announcing her last-minute leadership retreat in Chicago with a chilling lack of concern for my opinion. When she dropped that line so casually, it wasn't just a confession, it was a display of profound disrespect. It was a declaration that my feelings no longer mattered. After she went upstairs, I didn't shout, I didn't follow her. I walked calmly out to my garage to the old metal filing cabinet in the corner and retrieved the folders. I laid everything out on my desk. 6 months of receipts, screenshots of calendars, credit card statements showing hotel stays in different cities that perfectly matched her late nights. The pattern was undeniable, a cold, hard spreadsheet of betrayal. The next morning, after she left for Chicago with a suitcase far too large for a 2-day trip and a brief dismissive goodbye, I called my daughter. Samantha is from my first marriage, a 27-year-old corporate attorney with a mind like a steel trap and an allergy to nonsense she inherited from me. She knew from the tone of my voice that this wasn't a social call. When she arrived, I didn't editorialize, I just handed her the folders. Samantha sat at my kitchen table for nearly an hour, her face a mask of intense concentration. She spread the papers out, her legal mind connecting dots I had only seen as isolated points of pain. She cross-referenced dates, highlighted expenses, and occasionally let out a quiet, sharp breath. When she finally looked up, her expression was cold fury. "The hotel charges are damning, Dad," she said, her voice low and steady. 3 different cities over 4 months, always on nights she claimed to be at the office. She paused, then asked the critical question. "Tell me again exactly what her text said last night." I told her. She said she owed him a fun night. Samantha's eyes narrowed. She said that, out loud, in writing. She stood up and began to pace. "Dad, this is more than just an affair. This is a corporate governance disaster waiting to happen. He's her direct supervisor. If he's using company funds to facilitate this, it's a massive violation." She pulled out her phone, her thumbs already flying across the screen. "Our prenup, Section 9. I helped you draft it, remember? Professional infidelity. It's not just about cheating, it's about conduct that brings professional disgrace. It voids her claim to spousal support and triggers an unequal distribution of assets so heavily in your favor it's not even funny." She looked at me, a fire in her eyes I hadn't seen since she captained her high school debate team. "We aren't just going to document this, Dad. We're going to weaponize it." The next 24 hours were a masterclass in strategic destruction, orchestrated by my daughter. She made a series of quiet, brilliant calls. The first crucial one was to a name I didn't recognize. The next morning, my phone rang with an unknown number. "Mr. Pfizer?" a woman's voice said. It was cultured, controlled, and dripping with ice. "My name is Elaine Garrison. I believe we need to talk." It was Mitchell's wife. Samantha had found a contact for her through a network of attorneys. "Your daughter," Elaine continued without a hint of warmth, "is both persuasive and incredibly thorough. She tells me our spouses are currently sharing a suite at the Palmer House, an arrangement funded by my husband's corporate expense account." There was a pause, and I could hear the chilling purpose in it. "This is not the first time Mitchell has strayed, Mr. Pfizer, but it is the first time someone has bothered to inform me with a professionally prepared file of evidence." I had to admire the efficiency. "I am flying to Chicago this morning," she stated, not asked. "I have already contacted Janet Robertson, the Senior Director of Human Resources at Davidson. We served on a charity board together. She owes me a favor, and she has zero tolerance for this kind of behavior from her executives. I thought you might want to be there when we knock on that door." Before hanging up, she added one more thing. "And Mr. Pfizer, bring your daughter. I like attorneys who don't waste my time." And so, on that cold Saturday afternoon, our unlikely team assembled in the opulent lobby of the Palmer House. There was me, a man watching the final act of his marriage play out. There was Elaine Garrison, the picture of aristocratic fury, her pain forged into a diamond-hard weapon. There was Janet from HR, a woman who radiated a no-nonsense corporate authority, her briefcase full of policies that were about to be brought to life. And there was my daughter, Samantha, calm and collected, holding her phone as if it were a loaded gun. She had gotten the room number. Courtney, in her arrogance, had texted it to me that morning with a flippant, "In case you need me" message, likely believing I was at home, defeated. Suite 1847. The elevator ride to the 18th floor was the longest of my life. The air was thick with unspoken purpose. We walked down the carpeted hallway, our footsteps silent. I could hear faint jazz music and the murmur of voices from behind the door. I took a breath, steadied myself, and knocked 3 times. Firm, loud, unmistakable. The music stopped. We heard footsteps, light ones, approaching the door. It swung open, and there was Courtney. She was wrapped in a plush hotel robe, her hair down, a half-full glass of wine in her hand. She was smiling, a relaxed, unguarded smile that died the instant she saw me. "Randall?" Her voice was a squeak of shock. Her eyes flicked past me and saw Elaine. Her face went white. Then she saw Janet holding a leather briefcase. And finally she saw Samantha, phone held high, its red recording light glowing like a malevolent eye. "Oh God," she whispered, the wine glass trembling in her hand. Elaine didn't wait for an invitation. "May we come in?" she said, her voice arctic cold as she brushed past Courtney. "I believe my husband is expecting room service." The rest of us followed her into the suite. The scene was one of cliché corporate sleaze. An open bottle of expensive champagne sat on ice. Mitchell Garrison stood in the middle of the room, barefoot, his shirt untucked, looking utterly bewildered. When he saw Elaine, he froze. "Elaine, I can explain," he stammered. "No need," she said, her voice cutting through the room. Janet was already at work, photographing the open laptop on the desk where an expense report was clearly visible. "Davidson Automotive Corporate Card," Janet announced clinically. "Suite rate is $4,200 for the weekend. That's a lot of discretion." Courtney grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my sleeve. "Randall, please," she begged, her voice a desperate whisper. "This isn't what it looks like." I finally looked at her, truly looked at her, and I felt nothing but a profound, empty coldness. I stepped back, letting her hand fall away into the empty space between us. "It looks exactly like what you told me it was," I said, my voice quiet, much quieter than hers. "You owed him a fun night. The only surprise here is that you didn't expect me to show up." Mitchell, pale and sweating, tried to regain some semblance of control. "This is a private matter," he blustered. "It stopped being private when you used corporate funds and violated 6 different ethics policies," Janet snapped back, not even looking up from her tablet. "As of this moment, Mr. Garrison, you and Ms. Pfizer are under formal investigation." Elaine delivered the final, devastating blow. She walked to the window, looked out at the Chicago skyline for a moment, and then turned. "Mitchell," she said, her voice carrying across the room with lethal clarity. "By Monday morning, every senior executive at Davidson will know about this. My attorney will file for divorce by Tuesday, and because you violated the infidelity clause in our prenup, the one my father insisted on, you will leave our marriage with precisely what you brought into it, which, if I recall, was about $47,000 and a leased Audi. Enjoy your fun night. It's the last one you'll have on someone else's money." She walked out without a second glance. Janet followed, her work done. I looked at Courtney one last time, her face a mask of ruin, mascara tracing black rivers down her cheeks. "The house is in my name, Courtney," I said softly. "The prenup is ironclad. You should call a lawyer." And then, with my daughter by my side, I walked out of that room and out of that life, leaving the wreckage for them to sift through. The aftermath was a swift and brutal corporate execution. By Monday morning, Mitchell Garrison was placed on administrative leave. By Tuesday, he was terminated for cause. But the story took a turn that was darker and far more personal than I could ever have imagined. Samantha, in her thoroughness, kept digging. She called me on Sunday night, her voice tight with a strange mix of anger and sorrow. "Dad," she said, "I found something." Mitchell Garrison was married before Elaine, his first wife. Her name was Rachel Pfizer. The name hit me like a physical blow. My sister, my younger sister Rachel, from whom I'd been estranged for over a decade. After a messy divorce, she had moved to Seattle, cut off most of the family, and shrouded her past in a silence none of us could penetrate. "He cheated on her, Dad," Samantha continued, her voice trembling with rage. "Multiple times, with coworkers, always at hotels, always on the company dime. It's the exact same predatory pattern. He destroyed her career and drove her to a nervous breakdown. That's why she left. He didn't just ruin your marriage, Dad. He destroyed a part of our family 15 years ago, and we never even knew his name." The world tilted on its axis. My quiet quest for personal justice suddenly became something much larger. This wasn't just about my cheating wife. This was about a predator who had a history, a man whose path of destruction ran right through the heart of my own family. Armed with this new, terrible knowledge, the mission changed. It was no longer enough for Mitchell to just lose his job. He had to be stopped, permanently. With my blessing, Samantha reached out to Rachel. It was a difficult, painful conversation, but for the first time in 12 years, my sister opened up. Hearing her story in her own words, the gaslighting, the career sabotage, the emotional abuse that left her a shell of her former self, filled me with a cold, righteous fury I had never known. The man who had slept with my wife had also broken my sister, and he had gotten away with it. He made me sign an NDA, Rachel told me, her voice shaking but strong. He buried it. But if my story can help stop him from doing this to another woman, I'll testify. I'll do whatever it takes. Rachel's willingness to speak, combined with the evidence from the hotel and Janet's internal investigation, created a firestorm. Two other women from Davidson, emboldened by the news, came forward with their own stories about Mitchell. My LinkedIn post about the importance of corporate accountability, while not naming names, went viral within the industry. The story was picked up by the Detroit Free Press. It was an avalanche. The legal proceedings were almost an anticlimax. The divorce hearing was a formality. Faced with the mountain of evidence, the video, the HR report, the signed admission from Mitchell as part of his severance, Courtney didn't even contest it. The judge enforced Section 9 of our prenup without hesitation. She walked away with her personal belongings and the small amount of money she had when we married. The house, the investments, the life we had built, it all remained with me. She moved to a small apartment across the state and took a low-level administrative job. Her grand corporate ambitions had turned to dust. Mitchell Garrison, facing a criminal investigation for embezzlement and multiple counts of workplace harassment, took a plea deal. 4 years in federal prison plus a lifetime ban from holding a corporate leadership position. Justice, it turned out, was not a fiery explosion, but the slow, grinding machinery of consequence. It's been 15 months since that weekend in Chicago. My life is quiet again, but it's a different kind of quiet. It's not the silence of a dying marriage, but the peaceful stillness of a life reclaimed. My consulting firm has expanded. I hired 3 new people. I'm busier and more fulfilled by my work than I have been in years. My sister Rachel and I are closer than we've ever been. She flew in for the final hearing, and we spent a week together working on the old Mustang in my garage that had once been hers. It felt like we were restoring more than just a car. We were rebuilding our family. She decided to keep the car, a symbol of something she had reclaimed from a past that no longer had power over her. Last month, Samantha set me up on a date with a woman named Claire. We had coffee. It was nice. It felt normal. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I am moving forward, not just cleaning up a mess. I learned something profound through all of this. Sometimes the most powerful response to an earth-shattering betrayal isn't to raise your voice, but to lower it. To become quiet, patient, and methodical. To let the other person's actions become the fuel for their own destruction. They expect a fight, a storm. They don't expect the calm, steady tide that will, in the end, simply wash them away. And as I sit here now in my peaceful house, I am finally truly on solid ground.